Sometimes I really want to start out. If you're old enough, you remember the movie Good Morning Vietnam. I would love. I got to figure out what to say, but I would love to start out with like Good morning, man. Yeah. Anyways, it's been my dream, but I'm not going to do that today. Welcome to the Business and Bites podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Hansman, and we've got my good friends Emilio and Ryan with us as usual, and we're going to talk about war because everyone's talking about it. And so why shouldn't we talk about how the conflict in the world, both and this is we're gonna talk about Israel and Iran a little bit, but we know that also stuff going on over in Russia and Ukraine affects cybersecurity as well, and so we're gonna talk about that today. So anything you guys want to talk about? We always talk about the weather before we start for whatever reason because we're in like contrasting states, although it's warm and sunny where I'm at, just not as humid as it is over where you're at, Emilio.
It's a little rainy today, but I agree with you. Overall, I don't think I can complain much. But yeah, a little rainy today.
We're getting the red flag warnings, like literally last night in the middle of the night. I live in a fifth wheel, right? Wind out of nowhere came, shook the whole RV, and we're like, what just happened? It was like the craziest. I thought we were having an earthquake. Quite literally, I didn't hear rumbling, but I thought we were having an earthquake. That's what woke me up. And then I heard wind, and I was like, oh, weird. Like it was just out of nowhere. So, well,
we just got over 2 weeks of 95, 105 degree weather that has finally moved east in the country. So,
which is crazy because the same week there were some remote places in Montana. No, not Montana. Yeah, it was Montana. I think it was Montana.
It
got snow.
Like, yeah.
What is happening? Like, you drive like 300 miles, 500 miles, and you got people who are scorching. You go the other way, and they're like, they've got an inch of snow. Like, yeah. We can't make up our minds what we're doing here in the United States. I guess that's the beauty of our country is you can go and ski and scorch all. You just got to take a flight, a couple hour flight, and you can go do whatever you want. Pretty crazy. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. We have a lot happening in our world today. Most everybody, it's June 25th for context, for those who might be watching this later on. So we just had the ceasefire in Israel happen. We'll see how long that lasts because it's the Middle East and, who knows what's going to happen. But one of the warnings that has come out from the FBI is about cyber attacks. And they've talked about how Iran potentially will begin to do cyber attacks towards the United States. Now, when that happens, I think people are thinking like government. But what are your guys' thoughts on whether cyber attacks are going to happen more so to small, medium-sized business from Iran?
So cyber attacks are just up quite a bit. We watch our threat map all the time, and we're seeing double the amount of attempted cyber breaches right now at our clients. Never seen that many going on at a time, and they're hitting our clients, which are small business. They're not government. So we have real data that shows that small businesses are getting hit double to triple what they've been hit in the past. And they're getting hit from mostly countries like Iran, China, Russia, the Ukraine. So it's here, it's happening, and we have to deal with it and make sure that our clients are safe.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it affects a lot more than people think, right? People think cybersecurity, and I think this has been a long-lived misconception that I think us three as business owners usually try to argue and fight. Mostly educate and inform people so that they can realize what's happening, right? Everyone assumes this is only happening to larger companies. This is happening to the Microsofts and the Targets and the Home Depots and the Best Buys of the world, when it's really happening to the Truitts and the Sundance Networks and the AM3s and the mom and pop flower shop and, the gentleman trying to run his own auto dealer it's these small businesses in the US that are kind of the backbone of our economy that are being hit. And, us as business owners, we're here trying to protect. So when something like this starts happening on the other side of the world and the numbers start to ramp up, it's usually the little guys that get affected right away, right? Can it affect the bigger companies down the line? I'm sure it can somehow. But the people with the small mom and pop shops that have someone else local doing their IT, or maybe an MSP that's not focused on cybersecurity, or even those that are focused on cybersecurity, right? We can't protect them all, even if they are clients. You're just a target to being attacked. And yes, we help mitigate and we help you recover as fast as possible. But, this is one of those things that, I don't like to bring up any painful memories, but it's almost like, I remember when I lost my dad, someone told me, well, welcome to the losing a parent club. Like, only if you've lost a parent do you know what this feels like, right? And it's not the best example because you bring up some emotions in people, but it's one of those things that if you haven't lived through it, you don't know what it feels like. And you don't know how everybody scrambles and how incident response goes and how you have a sleepless night and how every time anything happens on your computer, now you automatically think it's a virus or a hacker, like from the paranoia. Like a lot of those things you only experience when you've gone through this on either side, as the victim or as a person trying to help the victim, and different states or country states or, different sides of the world going to war. It definitely starts to amplify this, right? Someone being attacked locally hurts the local economy, hurts the business. And a lot of what these countries are trying to do to each other is that, how do I hurt you guys without, a missile or a gun? And, I think that's a lot of what's going to be happening here.
Yeah. We're going to see a lot of, of course, we're going to see attacks on, infrastructure. We're going to see attacks on, things where people are going to try and get into, the electrical grid and stuff like that. That's a pretty normal, common thing already. China has been doing that successfully, I add, at least a couple times. So it's not really something that's necessarily changing. And I don't think that you need to be more aware because of this war, because all the other people who are doing cybersecurity attacks there's none of that's changed. Like it's not like all of a sudden everyone else slows down to let Iran in. There's still all that other activity that's always going to be happening. That's going to continue to happen. And it's just a matter of staying alert. And I guess the imagery that pops in my head. I don't know if you guys watch soccer. Do you guys watch soccer at all? Or are you football people?
Yeah, I've watched football.
So if you ever watch a soccer game, this is how I look at small business cybersecurity. If you ever watch a soccer game, there's some indicators that other team is going to score. So if you watch certain statistics like possession, for example, generally the team that has more possession tends to score more. And one of the things that we see is it's only like there's times where you watch a game and especially in soccer where it's fast paced back and forth, where you're like, it's only a matter of time before team A is going to get into the goal. Like, cause they've had 5 shots on target. And it's only a matter of time before something gets through. And it's really the same thing with small businesses. There's some that get targeted regularly, and it's only a matter of time before some phishing email gets fell for. It's only a matter of time before something like that happens, and that actually is catastrophic. Or and some people just like, well, it's never happened to me. Well, you've been lucky. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, it's not an if, it's a when, and you want to be ready for the when. So, one example I use all the time, why would a small manufacturing company in middle of nowhere, Ohio, care about a conflict halfway around the world in another hemisphere? Well, maybe they're a company that works on oil pipelines or they manufacture pipes. So some ransomware gang is attacking a pipeline somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, anywhere in the country, but this company is in their supply chain, and now they're affected because they're connected to this company somehow. So they get a lateral attack coming in and it hits it. So that's why you care. We're all connected in some way. It's that whole 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing. All the businesses, they're all connected in some way, shape, or form. Even veterinarian offices, they have about 3 to 4 different types of connections coming into them, from the x-ray company, from the labs, from this, from that. So those lateral movements, meaning that the supply chain connections that are coming into the network are just can be affected, and it can be affected halfway across the world. And
that's the reason why I always talk to people about talking with their suppliers. Like, who are your 3 most important suppliers or people who provide you a service? And then the real big question is, have you had a conversation with them about their own cybersecurity? Like, I've run into vendors that have tried to pitch me on their service, and they don't have 2-factor on their portal. I'm like,
we won't work with any vendors that don't have 2-factor.
Yeah, exactly. You're pitching to MSPs, and that's like what's happening here. So I think supply chain attacks are a legitimate thing. You look at 3CX, that was a North Korea attack, if I remember correctly. Trying to get Bitcoin was their main goal. You look at some of the attacks on just cyber gangs just trying to raise money. That's one of the ways that North Korea is earning money, is they're actually doing cybersecurity ransomware attacks to make money for their country. How crazy is that? I think that, when we look at these type of world issues, you look at attacks from adversaries like Iran, they're going to be trying to attack government infrastructure. And I think that, there's possibilities that they might attack small business, but we just have to keep in mind that all the other underlying stuff that we're fighting is still there. Like, it doesn't go away because one country becomes more aggressive. It doesn't happen. And when
collateral damage happens. So,
100%.
Yeah. So they're going to hit a small business by accident, meaning they want to get to the government, but they're going to hit an IP that's going to be collateral damage, and that's probably going to be a small business, or it's a very high chance it's going to be a small business.
I agree, and I think it's fascinating. I decided to pull this thing up because I thought it was cool. We all have seen these, but I think people don't realize the sheer amount of activity that's happening literally all the time. Like, all the time. There are things happening across the world that are countries attacking one another, or people in other countries going after other countries. And I think it's valuable just to keep that in the back of your mind. Like, there's just people who are just trying to make money. Like, that's their main goal. Like, that's what they're trying to do. And our goal should be to try to stop them from stealing our stuff from our businesses. And for us, it's, as managed service providers, it's how do we protect our customers from this stuff? Because there's a lot of it going on.
Guys, I can bring up my threat map of active attacks happening right now that our system is sorting. If we'd like to share that.
Yeah, because mine was more general, but that's but I think it's important. I think we have to look at, we should definitely be thinking about the global stuff that's happening. I think it's important to realize that there's a lot of stuff going on, and if you yourself should find ways, I would see, even from a personal level, to protect your stuff, because one of the other places that foreign adversaries like to attack are banks. So you want to make sure that you've got your banks protected and your banking information. So this is
John, let me see where this map is landing, so I can target some of these clients that Ryan has.
These are the IPs that are trying to hack in right now, going down the right. But we used to see maybe 3 to 5 at any given instant. Now we're seeing 12 to 15 attacks, and these are live attacks that are happening right now. That's the GMT time, by the way, on there, so that's not the time in any of our time zones, but these are the attacks that are happening currently, and you can see where most of them are coming from. Most of them are coming from the Middle East and Asia. So scary. I mean, I opened this up after the bombings on Friday and Saturday, and it was going nuts. You couldn't even barely see the countries on the map. So just a little pictorial graphic of this is crazy. And these are real attacks happening and getting stopped by our system at our clients.
Well, that's your business may not be the target, but you might still get hit in the crossfire of everything going across from nation to nation.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of you want to make sure that you are thinking about how to protect your business. You're putting things in place. Let's go personal real quick. Like, if what are the things that people should be doing on a personal level to protect themselves from some of the stuff that's going on? I'm just flipping it. Like, it's not even on the script.
One of my simplest recommendations to everybody on any level, especially personal, especially when you get to the older crowd, is just be mindful of what you're clicking on. Don't click on links that don't look familiar. Don't click on emails that just don't look right. And, that can solve 50% of the problems in the world. But people that are just click happy and click on everything, they get infected. It's not that's not even an if or when game. It's just a matter of, well, when are they going to call to tell us? We need to clean them up.
Yeah. I also think credit reports are valuable, like just to make sure that you're doing credit monitoring, whether it's like a LifeLock or one of those other tools. I also like, and I'm starting to move this way, where anytime, this happens on Apple Pay, but anytime our credit cards get used for anything, we get a text message. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really wise thing. So you can see everything as a kid. Might also help you spend less money. Or when your wife's shopping on Amazon.
So
those two things can happen. So
both very important.
Yeah, I have those. Maybe it'll start arguments at home, but
I have alerts set up for international purchases, and I get texts, and I send them to my my employees that have cards, or my wife, to say, hey, what's going on here, because I know whose card it was, and then I know if it's legitimate or not. I had one 2 months ago that wasn't legitimate. Right. We got a question here from LinkedIn. Somebody has a question that says, what antivirus services should we be using? Are they even worth it compared to the already installed Windows security? One of you guys want to take that one?
Well, I'll go ahead and take Carlos, since I know him. He's a gentleman of mine. He's actually the one that did one of my promo videos. So shout out to Brother of Lens. That's their name here in South Florida. If you're more than one person, Carlos, and you have a team, what we like to do is to get something that can be centrally managed. So something that an IT person or whoever's overseeing IT can control. Because what happens is when you get the individual antivirus that you install on computers and it pops up and it tells you something, you know as much as it knows what it found. You don't know what to do about it. You don't know how to act on it. You don't know if whatever it found leads to other things. So this is more of having the antivirus is good to block it initially, but having someone that can see what's happening on a daily basis is even better, because then they can take proactive and reactive measures instead of just buying something, installing it, and saying, well, I hope it's going to take care of me. Guys, you guys have any more input on that?
Yeah, security just isn't it's not a checklist. It's not, did I check all the boxes? Did I take care of it all? It's not like doing your taxes where you're just filling all the numbers into the box. There's a living strategy that needs to go along with security. And having the knowledge of how to take care of that is important, no matter the size of your business. If you're a one-person operation or a 10 million person operation, you need to have a good strategy to take care of and to defend your client's data. And at the end of the day, really to save your reputation and to defend your reputation as a business owner to your clients. because that's the biggest asset that businesses have is their clients, and making sure that their clients are taken care of and making sure that their clients' information is safe.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the question Carlos would have to maybe ask Emilio, or have a conversation with Emilio, would really be like, are we talking about for home? Are we talking about for your business? Are we talking about for something other than your basic home machine? When you start talking about business, you just move into a whole different level. You move into a whole different risk level. So you definitely want to kind of take into consideration where, what the location is. Like, I think that, like Emilio said earlier, everything's centrally located. There's so much value in knowing what's going on in your business. Like, that's a huge thing. Like, there's a lot of or at least having someone. Maybe it's not you if you're paying someone like us, but at least someone knows when something's going on. And what most people don't realize is that antivirus can maybe stop what's going on in the machine, but antivirus isn't going to stop business email compromises. It's not going to stop a lot of the other places that cybersecurity incidents happen today. They're not all happening on computers anymore. They're happening in the cloud. So how are you? And if I'd almost guarantee you, if Carlos is in media, he's probably on Google Workspace, or he's probably on some online platform for email. So the question is, how are you protecting all that data that you've got sitting there online? You're not doing it with anybody.
Perfect. That's a perfect statement to make, John. To answer the question, though, just so you don't say we didn't answer it, I would say the paid version of Malwarebytes.
Yeah.
If I had nothing and nobody to go to, maybe I go paid version of Malwarebytes to protect myself.
Totally.
Yeah,
I agree.
Regulatory compliance. We're dealing with regulatory compliance all the time. I spent all morning with 3 different clients. It was back to back all morning until we got to the podcast here, going through 3 different cyber liability insurance policies for the clients, making sure they had all the technical controls in place, making sure they had all the documentation in place. It's a lot. And if you don't follow it and you have cyber liability insurance and you don't cross off all those requirements of the cyber liability insurance and you have a claim, they're going to back out of that claim. So, we see this all the time. So, biggest thing is, don't just sign up for cyber liability insurance and not do anything. Talk to your IT professional. Ask one of us. Just get back to us and say, hey, what do I need to do? Because you want to ask those questions, because having it is great, but it's like having a lock on your door in your front house. If you don't lock it, people can just walk right in. If you don't fulfill the requirements on the cyber liability insurance, people can just walk right in and you can do nothing about it.
Carlos is back again.
Awesome.
I love it. Yeah, you clicked on it. Good job. So what's one of the most overlooked aspects of cybersecurity that business owners are experiencing? Oh man, this guy's like trying to help you market here. This is good.
I'll go first. Yeah, Carlos is good. I like that. We appreciate you, Carlos. I appreciate you. So, and actually that's my chapter in my book over here. If anybody wants a copy, reach out to me and I'll send you a free copy. I think the most overlooked thing is that our employees are our weakest link within our business. Nobody wants to spend the time to train the employees and put in the proper processes for them to follow for this stuff to happen. As Ryan just mentioned to you in the previous one, I can have an ADT alarm. I can have Ring cameras. I can have locks in my doors, my windows, and my attic. But if I forget to lock all of them, if I forget to turn on the ADT properly, if I forget to turn on motion sensing when I'm asleep, if I forget to do all of those things and I don't use them correctly, then someone can still get into my house and do whatever they want. So the same thing happens with cybersecurity. If we don't train the users on the tools that we're implementing and we create policies to show them how to use the tool and the guidelines, someone can still get into our system.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, just to answer the question directly from my opinion, I just said it. I think it's the cloud. I think the biggest place that it's overlooked is people aren't paying attention to their online email platforms. They're not taking care of their Microsoft. They're not monitoring that. They're not setting up their Google right. They're not using two-factor on their accounts. I think the cloud email is the most overlooked place that business owners aren't looking at by far.
That's a trap. That's a trap that a lot of people, when they come to us, a brand new client comes to us, I'm in the cloud, I'm secure. Well, that's probably the most insecure place if it's not secured properly. And they think buying tools and that can be a panacea in the cybersecurity world, that buying tools is a solution. Emilio, I and John, I'm sure you both see this. It's tool heavy, but not skill heavy, and people don't know what they're doing with the tools, and they think, oh, I installed it, I checked that box, and I move on. I know we see that all the time. I'm sure both of you see that often.
Except in some cases, people aren't even doing that. Yeah. Like, I had somebody recently who told me they don't even care. They're like, I'll just restart. Like, I'll just buy all new. I'll buy all new stuff, which is funny because they're not even going to buy all. I can't even get them to buy new stuff now.
Yeah. Oh,
they have 10-year-old machines in some cases, and they still don't want to update, and yet they're like, I'll just buy all new stuff. Okay. Last question for each. Man, this Carlos guy, I just added him to LinkedIn because I like him. Accept my invite, Carlos. Last question. What's the most impactful or lasting cybersecurity experience that still haunts you to this day? An experience that becomes a lesson that you teach your clients when discussing their cybersecurity needs?
I have too many for this one.
That's a good one.
Okay, well, you got to pick one.
So I have too many, but generally speaking, it's the client that calls. Most likely it's a new client that called and said, I can't get into anything. I can't open up any of my files. Why are all my files wingdings and weird characters? Well, you've been hacked. You've got ransomware on your computer. And no matter if it's a new client or, we've had existing clients with personal computers that got ransomware and they bring them into us. Fortunately, our business clients don't get much because of the protection we have in place. But my heart sinks for them because my first question is, how good are those backups? Big thing. My next question is, how good is anything you have there? Or am I walking into basically an open door on a house on a busy street and gonna see just a mess of a cyber situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, I would say my number one thing is, had this happen actually with the first cybersecurity client that I signed when we went from regular IT managed services to cybersecurity. We remove the ability to save passwords in your browsers, and we give you a password manager, and then we give you password policies. And for some reason, this client didn't think a lot of that was important. They thought that, how we previously mentioned, that if we just install all the tools, we're good to go. And they kept the same password across different platforms. And at one point, somebody got into their Instagram and they started changing all of their posts and removing things. And then that same password they had for Amazon. Luckily on Amazon, it had 2FA. So what the person kept getting was the 2FA code on their phone, but they can see that the person was attacking different platforms because you kept getting 2FA responses from different platforms. And I said, well, did you have, there was in no way were we protecting the Instagram account itself.
Mm-hmm.
That just wasn't part of the solution that we had. And I said, what are the chances that your Instagram password was the same there as it was on your other platforms? And they said, yes, it was. And I said, well, part of our policy is to not have the same password across different platforms. In fact, that's why we give you the password manager, so that you can create different passwords while you're going down.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do that. And that was just kind of like the nudge, hey, we got to do what Emilio's telling us to do for these reasons like this. And after that, they went on they set like some of their data entry people to set passwords on everything, new passwords, that were randomly generated. So I would say that's almost the first lesson that I go with. It's more of, hey, I can give you all of this, but if we don't do it, then we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You know,
I fortunately knock on fake wood on my fake desk here, but I've not had anything. Most of what I've had that were negative things were people who said no. I had one client just before COVID who said no to services because Comcast has cybersecurity, and they got ransomed and they lost a lot of data and a lot of money. And their insurance company didn't want to take care of them because they didn't have anything in place. And they found out quickly that it cost them a lot of money to recover, and they could have spent actually less money with us than that one incident cost them. And so there's that. And I think the things that haunt me, sometimes because it's a sales perspective thing for me. I had one client that I was working on the job and I lost it due to price. And I got undercut severely by a local competitor who doesn't really do cybersecurity. And they failed 50% of their phishing. Their employees got phished. And in the risk assessment, a conversation, they said they saw it until it came to the dollar sign. And I did a poor job this a couple of years ago. I did a poor job of saving that one, and I'm still reach out to them every once in a while to check on them. But just the idea that because I didn't do a good job making them a client, they could get hacked. That actually bothers me. That's one of the things that keeps me up when I look back on. Oh man, I really botched that deal. It wasn't about the money for me. It was about the fact that these guys were a serious target, and we show them all the evidence of it, and they're sitting unprotected still because the guy they work with, because he just wanted the business and undercut us by a ton. And gave them exactly what they wanted, which was just tech support and some virus protection. They're at risk still. And they're a big business. They're a pretty good sized electrical company. And so it's like,
well, you did what you could, but I get you. It kind of haunts you because you could have done something about it. But at the end of the day,
I look back on how that whole
so.
thing went down, and there's some things that I could have done better that I probably could have been able to help them out and be better at my negotiations or however you want to say it. And it's just one of those things that I hope it never comes down to them coming back and saying, yeah, we should have went with you because of this. But at the same time, it's one of those things. Sometimes when you're in a business, like if you're selling cell phones, it's kind of like not dishing anyone who's selling cell phones. If you're selling jelly, I'm just making, whatever. It sometimes it doesn't seem, it's not as trivial, or there's not as much road impact if someone says no. It's just cash. And sometimes for me personally, when I lose and I don't win a deal and I win it, I lose it to like somebody who doesn't do cybersecurity, that bothers me. And I'm like, man, where did I miss the messaging?
Does that keep you up at night, John?
Sometimes. Usually right after, not all the time, but sometimes right after.
Things that keep me up. Things that keep me up at night are people that, the things that haunt me are clients that say, oh, I'll save everything on the server and I'm going to make sure all my clients save everything on the server, or replace the Werber server. We'll save it all on the cloud. I'm going to make sure all my employees and my whole staff's going to put it on the cloud. Yeah. And then computer crashes, or some other security event happens on their computer that, like an Instagram hack or something like that. Right. And I get that call. And I've gotten that call enough times. That's probably why I have the haircut I have right now. You get that call, and it's that sinking feeling, even though you put the policies in place, even though you put everything in place. It's just that haunt of, we could have prevented this and we could have done that. We now pushed most of our clients to do backup on all their workstations as well as their cloud or their server. Something we didn't push until about the last 2 years. And ever since we've done that, it saved our clients rear ends at the end of the day. We probably get 5 to 10 a year of people that have a computer that crashes or they do something just stupid. And I say stupid with all due respect. They do something that's not the greatest decision in the world. And then we're able to bring back, we can bring back their data if it's backed up. But before, we never really pushed backing up every single workstation like we do now. And that creates a lot less haunts. And maybe I'll have a nice head of hair like Emilio or John one day, because I won't be up all night.
Hey guys, so Carlos, thank you for those questions, because that last question and the last two responses from John and Ryan actually segue us into our next segment, which is working with a cyber partner that actually gets it, right? And you guys have just kind of touched on this with your last two answers. So I want to go ahead and just add some and then open up the floor to both of you again. If someone's dealing with an IT company that hasn't had the conversation, Carlos said he has one more. We'll get to that in a second, Carlos. So clients that haven't had the conversation with their current IT provider. So no one's talking about cybersecurity. No one's bringing this up. What would you guys say about those?
Bring in somebody that can ask the right questions. Even bring in a cybersecurity specialist or a company that specializes in cybersecurity with your IT provider, and see how they can work alongside of each other. Because if you have an excellent IT support person or excellent IT support company, you can always shift your cybersecurity over to another firm, and you can let them handle it. They can work with your IT provider. Our goal as MSPs and MSSPs is not to replace people's current IT support. It's to augment it in a lot of cases. Our goal at the end of the day is to just secure your system, secure your infrastructure, and it's another set of eyeballs. It's several sets of eyeballs in most of our cases that are watching things and seeing what's going on.
For me, I think it depends. In some cases, I am trying to replace their IT company because they're a liability. I mean, let's just be honest. Like when somebody walks in to a business and tells them, you don't need all that crap. When I gave them evidence that they're one phishing email away from having their business compromised, and a company comes in and says, oh, I'll do it for a quarter of what they're offering. You don't need all that crap. Those people, I think, are a liability. And I think at some point it'll come back to bite them. I think at some point it's going to come back to, they're going to be out of business because that company is going to get hacked, and they're going to have to answer for, well, you told me we didn't need all that stuff. So I think when you have an in-house IT company, there's a lot of hospitals, there's a lot of larger business that have in-house day-to-day IT. I looked at a small school district over Washington State here, and they had an in-person person who's actually around all the time, but he didn't have the cybersecurity experience. That's a really great place for us to jump in and say, look, we're not trying to replace your day-to-day guy who's taking care of your employees and he's doing the help desk side. We don't need to be in that. If he's doing a great job, there's no reason for us to replace him. But
we can put an infrastructure in place for him to make it more.
We can give him tools and support that he may not have, and give him a lot of times when you go into businesses, they've got one or two IT people. They almost always don't have tools the same. They don't have the same tools. Sometimes they don't even have RMM or remote management. We had in my old company, we had the IT guy. He was going around and around and around to every single desk in the building. He spent half his time ping-ponging between his office and everyone else. They'd pick him up, call him on the phone, and rather than just remoting in, he would walk across the building or drive over to the warehouse or whatever. And now that I'm in the industry, I'm like, dude, you could have spent a little money, put remote support on, and you would have saved yourself a ton of time. So there's cases where we can up the game of your current IT solution that's there. Like if you have an in-house IT department and you don't know where your cybersecurity sits, our companies are a really great fit to come in and work with your IT company, your IT department to up their game to make sure that they have adequate cybersecurity in place. That's a really great fit. But when it comes to the MSPs that are saying you don't need all that crap,
hang up the phone.
Co-Manage is some of my best and my favorite accounts. But I agree with you. If they're in-house, we can definitely augment them and throw like a cybersecurity blanket on top and help them probably do their job even better than doing it now, as John mentioned. If they have an IT provider that's saying that this is too much, and I've had people say that against my bids, and then I said to the client or to the prospect, I said, I would just appreciate if you allow me to present to you an apples to apples bid for whatever it is you decide to go with. So if you decide to go cybersecurity, I'd like to represent mine. If you like to go with the lower level of just managed IT that they're proposing you, then I would like to propose one of those too. And I said, but I want you to keep this in mind. They're telling you, why do you need that much security? We eat our own dog food. So whether you want to meet at the managed IT level, know that in-house, my team is doing all that security stuff that we were talking about, right? While they're saying, why does that matter? And they're not. And then I want you to take this into consideration. My business has access to 10 or 15 other businesses, as does theirs, right? Whoever you choose, that person will also have access to your business. Do you want to choose the person that says that, why do we need that much security? Or do you want to go with the person that knows that they need that much security? Because not only are they protecting their own business, but they're protecting their clients, which in turn is the supply chain, you know? So, you know, I try to have that conversation with them and kind of just inform, educate, lead them to water, and hope that, you know, that they'll drink some of the water.
I think that's a great answer. I mean, the question is, and you just nailed it. If you're not taking care of your clients, are you really taking care of your own stuff too? Does that mean you're a liability to your clients?
And it gets back to a comment I say at least 3 out of 5 days a week to a client. When they say this is too expensive, I always say this is peanuts. This is 1 or 2% of what it would cost to take care of a breach, a cyber breach. And when I say that, it kind of puts it in context. But, you know, sometimes people need to learn their own lesson. That's one thing that does haunt me, is when they do learn a lesson after they say no. Getting back to what John said earlier.
Exactly. Carlos said he had a final question, but never put a question in. So I guess the question is, what's Carlos's question?
Amelia, where's your crystal ball?
Well, that brings up a great point. If you're watching us online, you can leave a comment and we can respond to you during the podcast and answer your questions. So if you're watching and you have a question while we're talking, please throw something in the comments, because you just saw Carlos had some questions and we got them answered super fast, because we generally want to be a resource to you guys. So
why don't we go over some cyber tips, and hopefully Carlos will chime in with this question and we can answer it at that point. But we want to go around with some simple cyber tips that can help us help our viewers be more secure.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
You're first.
I guess since I touched on passwords before, we can talk about passphrases instead of passwords. So instead of doing Smith 2023, maybe with a $sign and an exclamation at the end, you can do something longer. Don't quote me while I make stuff up off the top of my head, but you know, purple tacos dance for breakfast. You know, on the 4 instead of FOR could be the number 4. You know, purple tacos dance for breakfast. So it's something that's long and not as easy to remember. But if you just have that to get into your password manager, then you can have the other complicated passwords in there.
Something as simple, and this sounds simple to a lot of people, but turning on those MFAs, those codes that we all get on our phones, those codes that we have in the authenticator, they are annoying. We think they're annoying to have to take that step to go through, but they do secure things more, and it does make things much more secure. So turn on your multi-factor authentication or MFA, or I call it codes to your cell phone. Turn them on, and that will save you a lot of anguish in the future.
Yeah. Ryan, oh, you just did yours. Woo! Okay. Well, obviously I'm still tired. One of the things I think I preached on this and that in this before, but training and cybersecurity training. It is so important that you build a culture of cybersecurity training. At the bare minimum, you should have something that comes in once a month that talks to your employees about cybersecurity. But the reality is, you should probably look at some of ours are once a week. They're not long, they're short. The idea is to keep those things top of mind, and you should be having regular conversations with your employees about cybersecurity and create a culture that is focused on helping your business stay secure. You should be having conversations at the very beginning of employment about expectations about clicking on links, about privacy, about social media. All those things are really important. So building a cyber aware culture in your business would be probably one of the most important ones, because if you do that, all these other things happen. So that's my 2 cents.
So Carlos, question. This is going to be a fun one. Who wants to take this first?
I'll take it first. Let's answer these and then we can wrap up today. One of my funniest is, this is a long time ago though, and some of our younger audience might not have ever used CDs, but I had a client call and she said that her hard drive was not taking the CDs. And I was like, all right, I don't think I understand, but I think I know what you're trying to put together. I said, are you hitting the button to open up the CD drive? She said, yeah, it's sitting on my desk vertically. I'm hitting the button, it comes out. I put the CD and it just falls down. Like, no matter what I do, it doesn't stay in. And then I'm like, all right. She's like, I'm going to hold it and hit the close button. And she's going to kind of like walk the CD in. And then it got stuck or something. So my help desk guys were busy. So I was like, you know what? I'll be up there. This was an on-site place. And I come up and she's putting the CD in on the wrong side. So you know how when you're standing up, the CD kind of like falls into a pocket and then you can slide it in. So she's putting the CD on the wrong side. And I just walked up there and I looked at her and I guess she saw it in my face and she's like, uh-oh, did I do something stupid? And I was like, no, you just didn't know where to put the CD. And she's like, I don't think I'm ever calling you again. And we both laughed about it and walked away. But yeah, I think, the whole the hard drive's not taking my CD, and I was like, what are we talking about?
That's great. Ryan?
So this is funny, weird, and all in one. I have one of our businesses we just still do work for to this day. The wife of the owner brought a computer in and a laptop into our office, and it was not, we don't get a lot of in-person walk-ins, but we get 1 or 2 a week, but she brings it in and it's just cracked. The whole side of it is all cracked. And I'm like, okay. So I said, let me just take a quick look at it. I had one of my guys grab it, take a look at it. And he came down. He's like, oh geez, we need to, replace the laptop. It's really bad. And where I looked at her and I said, how did this happen? And she goes, well, he fell asleep on the toilet and it fell onto the tile floor. I just lost it at that point. And if I was her, I would have made up another story, because honesty creates some of the best stories. And I know we all should write a book one day with these funny stories in it, but I did not know what to say. And she just literally took the laptop, said, order him a new one and bill him for it, and walked out the door.
So I'm scratching my head to think about something like that. Most of the funny, weird things that I've had happen was when I had a consumer shop. And I can't tell you the number of conversations I had with people who thought they were being spied on. Like legitimately, I had one lady that I went and installed cameras at hers, and I had access to them for her. And she's like, yeah, there was a bunch of Ring cameras. They went in and deleted a bunch of stuff. They snuck around. They were able to cloak themselves from being seen by the cameras. This is like 6 months after we installed them. And like the stories that I've heard from people, and usually they'll say things like, well, I called the FBI and they wouldn't help me. And so we had quite a few of those that were just really bizarre. But I will tell you a story. I worked in the home security industry for a long time. And if you've ever looked on like storage facilities, a lot of alarm companies would put their 800 number on the fence to say this is protected by whatever company. If you see something happen. Well, I was working late one night, so this is completely not IT related. And we get this phone call from this guy who says, hey, I need some help. And it was actually a lumber supplier. And I need some help. I'm stuck in the gate at this lumber place. He gave us the address. We look it up. And he says, well, I'm inside and I can't get out. And our employee says, and we listened to it when live. So how'd you get in there? Well, I climbed over the fence. So she says, well, are you supposed to be in there? And he says, not really. She goes, okay, I'll send someone right over to let you out. And she unnaturally called 911 and had a nice guy in blue let him out of the gate and take him to the county jail.
So I have another funny story. This was a real story at a business client. I went to their house to help them with a desktop at their house. I knocked on the door and I literally just got grabbed on my shirt and pulled into the door, and just the door slammed behind me. And she was sure the mafia was after her, and she goes and opens the curtains a little bit and she goes, see, there's their car. And I'm like, well, that just looks like a regular car. And then I watched the neighbor get out of their house and walk to their car, but literally thought the mafia was after her. And that's all I heard about for the 2 hours I was there trying to fix this computer for her office that she worked at remotely. And I was like, wow. And I had texted my wife. I said, if I do not respond to you in 2 hours, please send the police to this address. Because it was really a weird, scary situation. I was more scared of the client than I was scared of like the mafia outside the door. So.
When I used to do, for a short time, I did inspections, like fire alarm inspections when I was in that industry. And I can't tell you the number of people who pulled down smoke detectors and everything because they were convinced that the government was watching them through their smoke detectors. So crazy stuff. Well,
I got one that's intense, but I'll save it for another time. You guys, I didn't think of it until you guys triggered the idea.
So it's going to be a conversation. Well, this has been a great show so far. We've had a lot of really good tips. We've had a lot of good conversation about how to protect your business, and we're back on schedule, which is awesome. So I'm done camping with a bunch of kids at a church camp, and so I'm back for a while. Thanks again, Carlos, for submitting questions, and hopefully more people will jump in with those questions. If you need anything from any of us, you're more than welcome to reach out to us on any of the social media platforms. And if you would like and subscribe our content, that would help us grow. And we should have everything on the Apple, Spotify platforms current. We'll have those things uploaded this week if we're behind. But we'll be back next week with the Business in Bites podcast. If you have questions or you have content or things that you want us to cover as a topic on the show, please drop us an email or talk to us on social media, and we would be happy to cover a topic for you. That would just be an awesome way for us to continue to serve our business communities that we're in. So with that, I don't think, unless there's something else from you two gentlemen, look forward to coming back next week.
That's
Looking
all for
forward
me.
to it.
See you guys next week.
Yeah, sounds great. Talk to you
Thanks,
later.
gentlemen.
You bet. Let's make it happen.